The subway was almost empty that night. The city above was still glowing with lights, but deep under the ground, the train carried only a few passengers. Sarah stepped inside with her little daughter asleep in her arms. Her eyes felt heavy, and her shoulders were sore from a long day. Sarah was a young single mom. Life had not been easy for her. Every morning, she woke up before the sun rose. She worked at a small diner in the morning, cleaning tables and serving food. In the evening, she worked at a store, standing on her feet for hours. The money she earned was just enough for rent, food, and the school fees of her daughter, Lily. Tonight had been especially tiring. The diner had been crowded, and later the store had a late delivery she helped unload. Her legs felt like they carried stones. She looked down at Lily, who was sleeping peacefully against her chest. That little face was her reason to keep going. No matter how tired she was, Sarah never let her daughter feel unloved. The subway car was quiet. Only the sound of the train wheels filled the air. Sarah found an empty seat and carefully sat down. She adjusted Lily in her arms so that the child would not wake up. Sarah leaned back against the seat, trying to rest her eyes for just a moment. That was when she noticed the man sitting beside her. He wore a dark suit, neat and expensive. His shoes shined even in the dim subway light. He was holding a phone, reading something, but when Sarah sat down, he briefly lifted his eyes. His gaze was calm, serious, and polite. Sarah quickly looked away. She did not want to disturb anyone. She always felt shy when she was around people who looked rich and powerful. They belonged to another world. Sarah's world was filled with bills, small savings, and endless hard work. People like him probably never had to think twice before buying anything. But tonight, her body could not keep up with her thoughts. Her head felt heavy. She tried to stay awake, tried to sit straight, but the more she resisted, the more her eyes closed. Slowly, without even realizing it, she leaned to the side. Her head gently rested against the man's shoulder. For a moment, Daniel, the man in the suit, froze. He had not expected a stranger to lean on him. He looked down at the young woman beside him. Her hair was a little messy from the long day. Her face looked pale and tired, but there was something soft and kind in it. In her arms, the little girl slept soundly, holding onto her mother's shirt. Daniel could have moved. He could have shifted away or cleared his throat to wake her. But something in him stopped. Maybe it was the deep exhaustion on her face. Maybe it was the small child who trusted her mother completely. Instead of moving, Daniel stayed still. For the first time that day, he put his phone away. The subway passed through dark tunnels, lights flashing by. Sarah slept quietly for a few minutes. She did not even know whose shoulder she was leaning on. All she knew in her half-dreaming state was that for once, she felt a little less tired. When the train reached the next station, the sound of the doors opening and closing woke Sarah. She opened her eyes slowly, realizing with shock that her head was on the man's shoulder. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she whispered quickly, her cheeks turning red. She sat up straight, afraid she had annoyed him. "I didn't mean to." "It's fine," Daniel interrupted gently. His voice was calm, deeper than she expected. There was no anger in it, only kindness. Sarah blinked, surprised. Usually, when she made mistakes around strangers, people frowned or sighed. But this man was different. He gave her a small nod as if saying it truly didn't matter. She looked down, embarrassed. Lily still slept in her arms, unaware of what just happened. Sarah tried to adjust her daughter and keep a distance from the man beside her. But inside, she felt something unusual: relief. Daniel studied her quietly, not in a rude way, but with a sense of curiosity. He noticed her uniform shirt and the tired look in her eyes. He had seen many people in the city, always rushing, always busy, but something about this young mother caught his attention. The train kept moving, carrying both of them through the night. For Sarah, it was just another subway ride after another long day. For Daniel, it was the start of something unexpected. As the train slowed down for the next stop, Sarah stood up, holding Lily carefully. She gave Daniel a polite smile and whispered, "Thank you." Daniel only nodded again, but his eyes followed her as she stepped off the train. Sarah walked up the stairs toward the street above, not knowing that her life had just brushed against someone who would soon change it forever. The morning sun poured through the small window of Sarah's apartment. The room was simple, just a bed, a table, and a little shelf where her daughter's school books were kept. Sarah slowly opened her eyes. For a moment, she did not remember the subway ride from last night. But as she stood in the kitchen preparing breakfast, the memory of leaning on a stranger's shoulder came back. Her cheeks warmed with embarrassment. "What must he have thought of me?" she whispered to herself while pouring milk into a small bowl for Lily. Yet, deep in her heart, she also remembered his kindness. The man had not pushed her away. He had not frowned or scolded her. Instead, he let her rest, and when she woke up, he simply said, "It's fine." Sarah shook her head, smiling a little at the memory. She knew she would probably never see him again. People in the city crossed paths once and then disappeared forever. "Mommy, are we late for school?" Lily's soft voice pulled her back. The little girl rubbed her eyes and yawned. "No, sweetheart. We have enough time," Sarah said, handing her the bowl. She brushed Lily's hair gently and kissed her forehead. Moments like these gave Sarah strength. Even when life was hard, her daughter's smile was enough to light up her world. After dropping Lily at school, Sarah hurried to the diner. The morning shift was always busy. Customers filled the tables, calling for coffee, breakfast, and orders. Sarah moved quickly, balancing trays and wiping tables. Her feet ached, but she kept smiling politely. During her short break, she stood by the counter sipping water. That was when she noticed a familiar face near the window. Her heart skipped. It was him. The same man from the subway. He was sitting at a corner table, reading something on his tablet. His dark suit looked just as sharp as the night before. Sarah froze, unsure what to do. "Go take his order," her co-worker whispered, nudging her. Sarah hesitated, then walked toward him with her notepad. "Good morning, sir. What would you like today?" she asked softly. Daniel lifted his eyes, recognition flashing immediately. "It's you," he said with a small smile. Sarah's cheeks turned red again. "Yes. I work here," she explained quickly, trying not to sound awkward. "I see." Daniel closed his tablet and gave her his full attention. "Then I'll trust your choice. Bring me whatever you think is best here." Sarah blinked, surprised. Customers rarely said that. Most wanted specific things, but this man was different. She nodded and hurried to place the order. While preparing his coffee and a simple breakfast plate, she kept wondering why fate had brought him here again. When she placed the food on his table, Daniel studied her with quiet curiosity. "You look less tired today," he said kindly. Sarah laughed nervously. "Maybe because it's still morning. By evening, I'll look the same as yesterday." Daniel's smile grew faint but warm. "You work late nights?" "Yes. I work here in the morning and at a store in the evening," she admitted, lowering her voice. "It's the only way to manage things." Daniel nodded, as if every word mattered. He had attended countless meetings with business partners, listened to many speeches from important people, yet somehow, this simple woman's words touched him more. "Your daughter," he asked gently, "she was with you yesterday?" Sarah's eyes softened. "Yes, that was Lily. She fell asleep before the train even moved." "She seemed peaceful," Daniel replied. "You must be doing something right." The compliment made Sarah pause. People rarely praised her. Most of the time, she only heard reminders of what she lacked: money, time, comfort. But here was a stranger, a man from a completely different world, noticing her efforts. Her throat felt tight with unspoken gratitude. "I just try my best," she whispered. The conversation could have ended there, but Daniel continued asking small, respectful questions. He wanted to know about her work, her daughter's favorite things, and even her dreams. Sarah answered carefully, wondering why someone like him cared at all. Before leaving, Daniel placed the payment on the table. "Thank you, Sarah," he said, surprising her again by remembering her name from her nametag. "It was good to see you again." She watched him walk out of the diner, tall and confident, his presence filling the space. When the door closed, Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. All day, his words stayed with her. He had not spoken with pity but with respect. That small difference made her heart feel lighter. That evening, when she picked up Lily, the little girl noticed her mother's soft smile. "Mommy, why are you happy today?" Sarah chuckled and shook her head. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just a good day." But deep down, she knew it was because of a man she had met only twice. A stranger who had shown her gentle kindness without asking for anything in return. On the other side of the city, Daniel sat in his office, staring at the city lights outside his tall glass window. He had meetings, reports, and endless work waiting. Yet, his thoughts drifted back to the subway ride, the little girl, and the tired young mother who carried so much strength in her quiet way. For years, Daniel had built companies, managed people, and earned respect. But rarely had he felt something so human, so simple, as letting a stranger rest on his shoulder in a subway. He wondered if their paths would cross again. And in his heart, he hoped they would. The next few days passed in their usual way for Sarah. She worked in the morning at the diner and then hurried to the store in the evening. Each day felt heavy on her body, yet she kept moving because she had to. Life didn't stop for her, so she couldn't stop either. But somewhere in the quiet corners of her mind, she kept remembering that man in the suit. The way he had let her rest on his shoulder. The way he had spoken kindly at the diner. It was strange. Why should she think about a stranger? Their worlds were far apart. She had bills to pay and a daughter to raise. He probably had meetings in tall buildings and people serving him coffee in fine cups. And yet, the memory of his calm voice stayed with her. One afternoon, after finishing her shift at the diner, Sarah stopped by a small cafe near the school. She had planned to buy Lily a little pastry as a treat. The cafe was warm and filled with the smell of fresh bread. Sarah smiled, imagining how happy Lily's face would be when she saw the cake. As she stood in line, her eyes caught a figure sitting at the corner table. Her heart skipped. It was him again. Daniel. He was dressed the same way, in a clean suit, though today he had taken off his tie. His expression was focused as he read some papers, but when he lifted his gaze, he noticed her immediately. A gentle smile spread across his face. Sarah froze for a moment, not sure whether to wave or look away. But Daniel raised his hand slightly in greeting. It was such a simple gesture, yet it made her feel seen. She stepped out of the line and walked toward him. "Hello," she said quietly, almost shyly. "Hello, Sarah," Daniel replied, remembering her name without hesitation. "It looks like fate keeps crossing our paths." Sarah gave a nervous laugh. "Yes, it does. I wasn't expecting to see you here." "Neither was I," Daniel admitted. "But I'm glad I did." His words made her heart flutter, though she tried to hide it. She reminded herself that he was just being polite. Rich, successful men like him didn't look twice at women like her. Still, his presence was comforting, so she sat across from him when he gestured toward the empty chair. For a few moments, silence lingered between them. Sarah looked at the papers in his hand. "Work?" she asked softly. "Yes," he nodded. "Always work. It never ends." He placed the papers aside, giving her his full attention. "But I'd rather talk with you." Sarah blinked, surprised by his honesty. "Me? I don't think I'm very interesting." "I disagree," Daniel said gently. "You're one of the most interesting people I've met lately." Her cheeks grew warm. She lowered her eyes, unsure what to say. Nobody had ever spoken to her like that. Most people only noticed how tired she looked, not who she was inside. Trying to change the subject, she asked, "Do you come to this cafe often?" "Sometimes," Daniel replied. "But I think I'll come more often now." Sarah's lips curved into a small smile. He had a way of speaking that felt both serious and light at the same time. They talked for a while. Sarah shared little pieces of her life, though she kept her words careful. She told him about Lily's love for drawing, about how she dreamed of baking cakes in her own shop one day, and how she often felt like the days were too short for everything she needed to do. Daniel listened closely, as though every detail mattered to him. He didn't interrupt or look distracted. Instead, he asked small, thoughtful questions that made her feel respected. "Do you ever rest?" he asked at one point. Sarah laughed softly. "Rest? I don't even remember what that word means." Daniel smiled, though his eyes looked serious. "You deserve to rest. You're carrying too much." The words touched her more deeply than she expected. Nobody told her she deserved anything. Usually, people just told her what she lacked. She looked at him, trying to read his face, but all she saw was honesty. When the cafe bell rang, Sarah realized she had been sitting longer than planned. "Oh, I should go," she said quickly. "I promised Lily I'd pick her up on time." Daniel nodded. "Of course. Don't let me keep you." Sarah stood, holding the small pastry she had bought for her daughter. She hesitated, then said softly, "It was nice talking with you." "The same for me," Daniel replied, standing as well. "I hope we meet again, Sarah." She gave him a small smile before hurrying out of the cafe. Her heart was strangely light, as if she had just shared a secret with someone who understood. As she walked toward the school, Sarah kept asking herself why she felt this way. He was just a stranger, wasn't he? And yet, in a city full of people rushing past each other, this man had stopped to really see her. Meanwhile, Daniel stayed in the cafe, watching her leave through the window. He could not explain it, but there was something about Sarah that drew him in. She was not like the people he met in his business world. She was real, hard-working, and full of quiet strength. As the evening lights began to glow outside, Daniel made a silent decision: if fate kept bringing her into his life, he wouldn't let the chance slip away. The following week, Sarah tried to keep her days as normal as possible. Work at the diner, quick meals at home, evenings at the store, and moments with Lily. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, Daniel's face kept appearing in her thoughts. His calm eyes, his warm smile, and the way he listened without judgment, all of it lingered with her. But each time she thought about him, a voice inside reminded her of the truth. He belongs to another world. A world I will never reach. Sarah's life was simple. She lived in a tiny apartment with second-hand furniture. She wore uniforms that smelled of coffee and soap. She counted every coin before paying bills. She dreamed, yes, but even her dreams were small: enough food for Lily, enough savings for her future, and maybe, just maybe, one day owning a bakery where she could make cakes for children's birthdays. Daniel, on the other hand, was a man whose shoes alone probably cost more than her monthly rent. He walked into rooms where people stood to greet him. His days were filled with meetings, important decisions, and a kind of respect she could not even imagine. That difference was too great. One afternoon, while Sarah was cleaning tables at the diner, Daniel came in again. She noticed him the moment he stepped through the door, tall and confident, his suit perfectly fitted. He carried an air of quiet authority, and yet his smile softened when his eyes found her. "Good afternoon, Sarah," he said, taking a seat at his usual corner. Sarah forced a polite smile, her heart racing. She carried her notepad but spoke carefully, keeping her distance. "Good afternoon. What can I get for you today?" "The same as last time," Daniel replied. "And maybe your company, if you have a break soon." Sarah hesitated. Her co-worker nudged her, whispering, "Go. He's handsome and clearly interested." But Sarah shook her head lightly. She wasn't looking for pity or charity. She didn't want to be a story of a poor woman rescued by a rich man. Still, when her short break came, she found herself sitting across from him again. Their conversation started light about coffee, about the weather, about the busy streets outside. But soon, Daniel asked, "Sarah, may I ask, do you ever think about what you want for yourself? Not just for Lily, but for you?" The question startled her. Nobody had asked her that in years. She gave a small laugh, but it was filled with sadness. "What I want doesn't matter. My life is about Lily now." "But you are a person too," Daniel said softly. "Your dreams matter." Sarah shook her head. "Dreams are expensive. I don't have space for them." Daniel leaned back, studying her with quiet respect. He wasn't judging her words, he was trying to understand. "You're stronger than most people I know," he said finally. Sarah looked at him, confused. "Me? Strong?" "Yes," he nodded firmly. "I've met leaders, investors, people who control millions of dollars. But you wake up every day, carry 2 jobs, raise a child with love, and still smile. That is strength, Sarah. A strength many don't have." His words sank into her heart like gentle rain on dry soil. She wanted to believe him, but a part of her resisted. "Or maybe it's just survival," she whispered. Daniel's expression softened even more. "Survival itself is strength." For a moment, their eyes met, and Sarah felt something she had not felt in a long time, seen, valued, not for what she lacked, but for what she gave. Still, she reminded herself of the gap between them. When Daniel left the diner that day, stepping into a sleek black car waiting outside, Sarah stood by the door, watching. The car drove away smoothly, disappearing into the city streets. She sighed, returning inside. The other workers teased her gently, but she only smiled faintly. Inside, her heart whispered, "He is kind, but he belongs to another world." That evening, as she walked home holding Lily's small hand, Sarah tried to shake away her thoughts. "Mommy, why are you so quiet?" Lily asked. "I'm just tired, sweetheart," Sarah answered, squeezing her daughter's hand. But the truth was, she was afraid. Afraid of what it meant to let someone like Daniel get close. Afraid of disappointment. Afraid of hope. Meanwhile, in his office on the top floor of a tall building, Daniel sat by the window, staring out at the city lights. He had closed million-dollar deals and made decisions that affected hundreds of employees. But his thoughts kept drifting back to the small diner, the tired yet graceful woman, and her gentle voice. He knew she lived in a different world. He could see the walls she had built to protect herself. Yet, something inside him wanted to step past those walls, not to change her, but to understand her. Daniel had met many people who pretended to be strong, yet Sarah carried her strength quietly, without show. That, he realized, was what drew him in. As night fell, both of them lay in their separate beds, thinking about the same thing, the strange connection between two people from worlds apart. Sarah pulled Lily close, whispering, "I just want you to have a better life, my love." And far across the city, Daniel whispered to himself, "I want to see her again." Neither of them knew how much their lives were about to change. The days passed quietly, but Sarah began to notice little changes around her. At first, she thought they were coincidences, but soon she realized that someone was quietly helping her. One morning at the diner, her manager suddenly told her she would no longer need to work the very late night shifts. "We've changed the schedule," he explained. "You'll get earlier hours now, so you can go home at a safer time." Sarah was surprised. She hadn't asked for this, and usually, the manager never cared about her situation. But she was grateful. It meant she could put Lily to bed earlier instead of carrying her home half asleep every night. Later that week, when she walked Lily to school, the principal stopped her. "Sarah," he said kindly, "your daughter has been offered a small scholarship for her art supplies. We noticed she loves to draw, and we want to support her talent." Sarah almost cried right there. She had been worried about buying new colors and sketchbooks for Lily. Now, somehow, that need was taken care of. It was too much to be simple luck. Deep in her heart, Sarah suspected who was behind it. She thought of Daniel, the man who kept appearing in her life with quiet kindness. Her suspicion grew stronger when one evening, as she left the store after her shift, she found Lily smiling and holding a small stuffed bear. "The nice man gave it to me, Mommy," Lily said cheerfully. Sarah looked around and spotted Daniel standing a little distance away. He gave her a polite nod, as if to say it was nothing. Sarah walked up to him, holding Lily's hand. "You didn't have to," she said softly. "It was just a gift," Daniel replied calmly. "She looked like she would like it." Lily hugged the bear tightly, proving his words right. Sarah sighed, her heart torn between gratitude and pride. "I don't want you to feel sorry for us," she whispered. Daniel's eyes softened. "Sarah, this is not pity. I respect you. You don't realize how much strength I see in you." His sincerity touched her, though she struggled to accept help. She had spent years teaching herself to survive alone. Depending on someone else felt dangerous. But when she looked at Lily's smiling face, she realized sometimes miracles came through people. From that day on, Daniel's presence became a gentle thread in their lives. He would stop by the diner more often, sometimes sitting at his favorite corner table just to talk with her during her short breaks. He never acted superior. He never made her feel small. Instead, he asked about her day, her dreams, and Lily's drawings. Lily, too, began to grow fond of him. She would wave excitedly whenever she saw him. Sometimes Daniel brought her small surprises: a coloring book, a set of pencils, or a little box of cookies. To Lily, he became a kind uncle who always listened to her stories. One evening, Sarah and Lily were walking home when it began to rain suddenly. They had no umbrella, and the streets were quickly filling with water. As Sarah struggled to shield Lily with her jacket, a black car stopped beside them. The window rolled down, and Daniel's voice called out, "Get in. I'll take you home." Sarah hesitated. She hated accepting rides, but the rain was cold, and Lily was already shivering. Finally, she agreed. Inside the car, the warm air and soft seats felt like another world. Lily giggled, enjoying the ride, while Sarah sat stiffly, feeling out of place. Daniel noticed her unease. "You don't have to feel uncomfortable," he said gently. "This is just a car. You belong here as much as anyone else." Sarah looked at him, surprised. Nobody had ever told her she belonged in a world like his. She stayed quiet, but something in her heart shifted. When they reached her building, Sarah thanked him sincerely. "You've done too much for us already. Daniel shook his head. No, Sarah. I've done very little. You've done everything for your daughter. That's the real work. That night, as Sarah tucked Lily into bed, she thought about his words. For the first time in years, she felt a little lighter, as if someone else was sharing her heavy load, not by carrying it for her, but by reminding her that she wasn't invisible. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his office later that night, thinking about the subway ride that had started it all. A single tired woman leaning on his shoulder had opened his eyes to a kind of strength money could never buy. He found himself wanting to see her smile, wanting to ease her burdens, not because she was weak, but because she deserved peace. In the weeks that followed, more small miracles seemed to happen. Sarah received an envelope with a discount card for groceries at the local store. Her manager praised her hard work, something that had never happened before. And one Saturday, Daniel invited Sarah and Lily to a small park. Lily played on the swings while Daniel and Sarah sat on a bench nearby. The evening sun painted the sky in soft orange. For a while, they simply watched Lily's laughter fill the air. "She's happy," Daniel said quietly. "Yes," Sarah replied with a small smile. "She doesn't know how hard things are. And I want to keep it that way." Daniel turned to her. "And who keeps you happy, Sarah?" The question made her pause. She had no answer. For years, she had lived only for Lily. Happiness for herself felt like a forgotten language. Daniel didn't press further. Instead, he simply said, "You deserve it too." Sarah looked at him, her heart trembling. For the first time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, life was beginning to open a new door for her. The weeks rolled into months, and Sarah found herself slowly growing used to Daniel's presence. He was no longer just a stranger from the subway. He had become a quiet part of her and Lily's life. Sometimes, he joined them for a walk in the park. Other times, he stopped by the diner just to drink coffee and talk for a few minutes. For Sarah, these moments felt like borrowed sunlight, warm but temporary. She reminded herself again and again, "Don't hope too much. His world is different from mine." Yet every time Daniel looked at her with genuine kindness, hope gently knocked at her heart's door. One afternoon, Daniel called her unexpectedly. "Sarah," he said in his calm voice, "there's a small event at my company tomorrow evening. It's not formal, just a celebration for our team's work. I would like you and Lily to come." Sarah froze. Her first thought was no. How could she, a simple diner worker, step into the grand world of his company? She imagined people staring, whispering, judging. The thought made her stomach tighten. "Daniel, I don't think," "Please," he interrupted softly. "I want you there. And Lily will enjoy it too. There will be music, food, and a lot of laughter. Just come as you are. That's enough." His words carried sincerity, but Sarah still hesitated. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Lily slept beside her. She kept asking herself, "Do I belong there? Or will I just embarrass him?" But the next evening, she found herself standing in front of the tall glass building, holding Lily's hand tightly. She wore her best dress, simple but clean, and Lily wore a neat frock that made her look like a little princess. "Mommy, this place is so shiny," Lily whispered, her eyes wide at the lights and tall walls. "Yes," Sarah said softly, her heart racing. When they entered, Daniel was already waiting. He walked toward them, his face lighting up with a genuine smile. "You came," he said warmly. "Thank you." Sarah nodded nervously, still feeling out of place, but Daniel bent down to greet Lily. "You look beautiful tonight," he told her, making the little girl giggle. Inside the hall, people turned to look. Whispers began almost instantly. Sarah could feel the stares. Elegant men in suits and women in glittering dresses glanced at her, curious and surprised. She lowered her eyes, wishing she could disappear. But Daniel didn't hide her. Instead, he walked beside her proudly, introducing her and Lily to some of his colleagues. "This is Sarah, and this is her daughter, Lily," he said with a calm, confident voice. Some smiled politely. Others looked puzzled. A few exchanged knowing glances. For them, it was shocking. Their CEO, a man of wealth and status, was standing with a simple single mother and her child. Sarah felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on her shoulders. She wanted to pull away, to leave the room. But then she felt Daniel's hand gently rest at her back, steady and supportive. His eyes met hers as if saying, "You are not alone." The evening continued with speeches and laughter. Lily quickly made friends with some children of the employees, her giggles filling the air. Seeing her daughter so happy gave Sarah strength. Toward the end, Daniel stood on the stage to give a short speech. Everyone fell silent, waiting for his words. "I want to thank all of you for your hard work," Daniel began. "Our company has grown, not just because of numbers, but because of the people behind them." He paused, then glanced toward Sarah. His next words made the entire hall go still. "Recently, I met someone who reminded me what true strength looks like. Not in money, not in power, but in quiet courage. She works hard every day, not for herself alone, but to give her child a better life. She taught me that resilience is the greatest wealth of all." The crowd listened, shocked, as Daniel continued. "She is here tonight. Her name is Sarah." All eyes turned toward her. Sarah's cheeks burned. She wanted to disappear, but Daniel's gaze held her steady. His voice was calm but filled with respect. "She is not from the same world as mine," he admitted, "but she has shown me what it means to fight with dignity, to live with love. And that, to me, is more inspiring than anything I have ever seen in business." The hall was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, a few people clapped. The sound grew louder until the whole room was filled with applause. Some clapped out of respect, some out of surprise, and some simply because they followed the lead of their CEO. Sarah's eyes blurred with tears. She looked down, clutching Lily's hand tightly. She had never imagined someone would speak about her like that, especially not in front of so many people. After the speech, Daniel returned to her side. "I meant every word," he whispered. Sarah shook her head, overwhelmed. Why would you do that?" "Because it's true," Daniel said simply. "And because people should know that not all heroes wear suits." Sarah couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She quickly brushed them away, embarrassed, but Daniel only smiled gently. That night, as they left the building, Lily skipped happily beside them, holding Daniel's hand. Sarah walked quietly, her heart still full of shock and disbelief. For the first time, she realized Daniel wasn't just being kind out of charity. He truly respected her. And that thought scared her, but it also warmed her heart in a way she couldn't explain. After that evening at Daniel's company, Sarah's life began to change in quiet, gentle ways. She still worked at the diner and the store, but now she carried herself differently. She no longer felt invisible, no longer felt that the world was too heavy to bear alone. Somewhere inside, a new sense of hope had begun to grow. Daniel continued to support her, but always respectfully. He never gave her anything with expectation or pity. Instead, he offered guidance, connections, and encouragement. One day, he asked, "Sarah, have you thought more about your bakery dream?" Sarah hesitated, remembering all the bills, the long work hours, and the fear of failure. I think about it," she admitted softly. "But I don't know if it's possible." Daniel smiled warmly. "I believe it is. And I'd like to help you make it real. Not by giving you money, but by connecting you with people who can guide you, showing you ways to start small and grow steadily." Sarah felt a mixture of fear and excitement. For years, she had carried the dream quietly, afraid it was impossible. And now, someone she trusted was offering support. Her heart fluttered. With Daniel's help, Sarah took small steps toward her bakery. She enrolled in a short course to improve her baking skills, rented a tiny space in a nearby market, and started planning recipes and menus. She worked tirelessly, often late into the night, but now she did it with a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. Lily watched her mother's efforts with wonder. She loved visiting the little bakery space, tasting new cakes, and helping with decorations. The bond between mother and daughter grew even stronger as they shared this new adventure. Meanwhile, Daniel remained a steady presence. Sometimes, he helped in small ways, meeting suppliers, arranging local publicity, or simply listening when Sarah felt overwhelmed. But more than the practical help, it was his belief in her that mattered most. One afternoon, as Sarah arranged cupcakes on the display shelf, Daniel entered quietly. "Everything looks amazing," he said sincerely, observing her hard work. Sarah looked up, smiling. "It's still small, but it's mine." Daniel nodded. "And it will grow. Just like your strength." Lily ran toward him, holding a tray of cookies. "Uncle Daniel, try this," she exclaimed. He tasted one and laughed. "Delicious, Lily. You've got talent too." Watching them together, Sarah felt a warmth she had never known. She realized that her life, once filled only with struggle, was now filled with care, respect, and unexpected joy. Months passed, and the bakery slowly gained attention. Locals came to taste her treats, children loved the small cakes, and neighbors spoke highly of Sarah's dedication and kindness. Daniel attended the small opening of her bakery, smiling proudly as she welcomed customers with Lily at her side. "What you've built is wonderful, Sarah," he said quietly, watching her laugh as she served a child a chocolate cupcake. Sarah blushed, looking down. "I couldn't have done it alone," she said. Daniel shook his head. "You did this. I only helped with doors that were already waiting for you to open them." That evening, as the sun set over the market, Sarah closed the bakery and held Lily's hand. "Come on, sweetheart, let's go home," she said softly. But as they walked toward the subway, Lily tugged at her mother's arm. "Mommy, can we ride just a little bit, like before?" Sarah laughed. "Sure." They stepped onto the train. The familiar hum of the subway felt comforting. It reminded her of where everything had started the night she had leaned on a stranger's shoulder, exhausted and uncertain. Daniel joined them, as he often did now. Sitting beside Sarah, he smiled at her. "This subway has seen a lot, hasn't it?" he said gently. Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder, not out of tiredness this time, but because she wanted to. "Yes," she whispered. "A lot of life happens here." For the first time, she felt completely safe, supported, and valued not for her struggles, but for who she truly was. Lily leaned between them, giggling and holding a small cupcake she had saved from the bakery. Daniel looked at the little family and then at Sarah, his heart full. He had never expected that a subway ride, a chance meeting, and a simple act of kindness could lead to something so genuine. And as the train carried them through the city, Sarah realized that her life had changed in ways she never imagined. She had found hope, friendship, love, and above all, a belief in herself. Her heart swelled with gratitude. She looked at Daniel, who smiled softly at her, and whispered, "Thank you." Daniel shook his head, quietly, gently. "No, Sarah. Thank you, for letting me see the real world. Your world. It's the most inspiring one I know." Sarah smiled, feeling warmth and peace she had never felt before. She glanced at Lily, holding her hand, and realized that together, they had found a new beginning, a life filled with love, respect, and dreams finally taking shape. And as the subway carried them through the glowing city, Sarah leaned on Daniel's shoulder one last time, not out of exhaustion, but out of choice, because finally, she felt she truly belonged. The future was no longer frightening. It was bright, full of possibilities, and entirely theirs.